The silence was the loudest part. In the final days of December 2021, as the year and seemingly an entire era was closing, the official notice finally dropped. Jay, a founding member, the lead guitarist, and the most outspoken bridge to the international fanbase, was leaving Day6. The statement from JYP Entertainment was a masterclass in sterile corporate language, citing mutual agreement, personal mental health concerns, and a divergence in musical directions. For my days, the fandom that had prided itself on supporting a band built on emotional honesty, the announcement felt like a sudden violent contradiction. This wasn't just a member leaving. It was the core narrative of Day6: unity, authenticity, and enduring brotherhood, publicly fracturing at its most vulnerable moment, with the other members on the cusp of mandatory military enlistment. The controversy didn't begin with a scandalous leak or a furious social media post from Jay himself, but with this chillingly formal goodbye. It ignited a slow-burning fire of confusion, grief, and suspicion that would smolder for years, fundamentally reshaping the band's identity and pitting factions of the fandom against each other in a protracted war over legacy, loyalty, and the true meaning of the authenticity Day6 had always sold. In the immediate aftermath, the public response followed a familiar K-pop script, an outpouring of supportive hashtags, messages thanking Jay for his work, and wishes for his health. But beneath this performative unity, online communities and forums became battlegrounds. The primary fuel was the glaring lack of a coherent, satisfying story. Fans were left to piece together clues from a fragmented past. They revisited Jai's own now-deleted live streams and social media interactions, where he had been uniquely candid for a K-pop idol, often discussing his struggles with anxiety, feelings of isolation within the industry, and creative frustrations. He had once joked darkly about being the company's least favorite and expressed a desire to make music that didn't necessarily fit the Day6 mold. These past moments, once seen as refreshing honesty, were now recontextualized as proof of a long-simmering rift. Netizens speculated wildly. Was this a forced removal disguised as a mutual departure? Did the pressure of maintaining the band's image while battling his mental health become unsustainable? Or was Jai simply an unwilling participant in a system he had grown to resent, choosing to break free even if it meant breaking the group? The company, JYP Entertainment, offered no further details, adhering to the industry's standard protocol of managing controversy through silence and controlled statements. The controversy entered a more complex and painful phase with the onset of the other members' military enlistments. The group was now officially in hiatus, but the narrative split widened into a chasm. On one side was Jai, now pursuing a solo career under the name EAJ. His new music was markedly different, darker, more experimental, and often explicitly addressed feelings of betrayal, confusion, and mental anguish. In interviews and on social media, he was more open than ever, sometimes making veiled references to a past life and the difficulties of conformity. To his supporters, this was the authentic evolution of an artist finally unchained. To critics, it was a selfish and disrespectful airing of dirty laundry that threatened to tarnish the Day6 brand, while the others, unable to respond, fulfilled their patriotic duty. Meanwhile, the four remaining members, Sungjin, Youngtae Wonpil, and Dowoon, maintained a near-total silence regarding the departure. Their social media posts focused on individual activities and vague messages of waiting and hope. This dichotomy became the central conflict of the controversy: a loud, messy, solo journey of personal truth versus a quiet, unified front of professional perseverance. The industry's power structures were laid bare here. JYP Entertainment, a massive corporation with a roster of groups, had a clear incentive to protect the Day6 brand asset and ensure the remaining four could return successfully. Jay, now functionally an independent artist, had the freedom to control his own narrative, but without the structural support of the company. This period of separation forced every fan to choose a side, often based on what they valued most about Day6. One faction, often older international fans who connected with Jay's relatable, open struggles, saw him as a martyr for artistic integrity in an oppressive system. They framed the controversy as a classic case of a sensitive artist crushed by the K-pop machine. The other faction, deeply invested in the survival and legacy of the band as a unit, viewed the four remaining members as the true heroes, silently bearing the burden of a comrade's exit and holding the line for their fans. Online spaces became toxic, with solo stands and OT4, only four supporters clashing over everything from stream counts for old songs to interpretations of past lyrics. The controversy was no longer about a single event. It was a daily, grinding civil war over the soul of the fandom, with each side accusing the other of betraying the very principles Day6's music stood for. This fandom behavior, amplified by the algorithm-driven outrage of social media platforms, ensured ensured the controversy never died. It lay dormant only to erupt with every new EJ release or every rare innocuous post from a Day6 member. The true pressure test, and the moment the abstract controversy crystallized into concrete reality, was the 2024 comeback. The members completed their service and announced their return as a quartet with the album Forever. The title was a clever, bittersweet piece of branding that simultaneously acknowledged the loss and declared enduring strength. The entire promotional cycle was a high-wire act navigated under the unspoken weight of the absent fifth. In interviews, journalists tiptoed around the subject, and the members spoke in careful, rehearsed themes of gratitude, renewal, and looking forward. They performed their new songs and old hits with a powerful, focused energy. To the public and the casual observer, it was a triumphant return. But within the fractured fandom, every gesture was hyper-analyzed. Did the rearrangement of old guitar parts feel like an erasure? Was the emphasis on their long-shared history a subtle rebuke of the departed? The company's narrative control was now fully apparent. The story was one of resilience, of four brothers overcoming all obstacles. This narrative was powerfully reinforced by their historic achievement headlining the Gocheok Skydome later that year. The concert, The Present, was a monumental, tangible success that made arguing against the quartet's viability seem irrational. The commercial and critical victory gave the official narrative, that of a renewed, strong Day6, immense weight. However, Jay's parallel path continued to complicate this clean story. His solo endeavors, while not reaching the commercial heights of Day6, maintained a dedicated audience. Occasional interviews or live streams where he referenced past struggles would send shockwaves back into the Day6 fandom, reigniting old arguments. The controversy now exists in a strange, unresolved stalemate. It matters profoundly because it serves as the ultimate stress test for the concept of authenticity in the K-pop industry. Day6 built their empire on being real, on singing about mental health, pain, and genuine connection. Yet when faced with the real, messy, human fallout of a member's severe distress and departure, the machinery of K-pop and the band itself could not engage with that reality transparently. They had to default to the industry standard: silence, careful branding, and moving forward. The fans who believed in the authentic fantasy felt betrayed by this corporate response. The fans who prioritize the product, the music, and the group's survival see that response as necessary and professional. Who controls the narrative today? Ultimately, JYP Entertainment and the four active members of Day6 hold the megaphone. They have the stages, the comebacks, the award shows, and the institutional power to shape the ongoing story. Jay controls his own separate narrative, which exists as a persistent critical footnote to the main text. The fandom remains divided, a microcosm of a broader tension in modern pop culture between supporting the individual artist's truth and supporting the collective art. The Day6 controversy is not a closed case. It's an open wound that heals and reopens with every new chapter. It asks uncomfortable questions about the limits of the idol system, the cost of mental health, and whether true authenticity is even possible within an industry built on controlled image and narrative. As Day6 moves into their second decade, their legacy is no longer just their music, but also this painful public lesson in what happens when the perfect, authentic story breaks, and everyone is left to argue over how or even if it should be pieced back together.